The unexpected response. Olivia stared at her phone screen, reading the message over and over again, trying to make sense of it. I think you have the wrong number, but I can see you're in a difficult situation. I'd like to help if you'll let me. What's your address? Her first thought was that this had to be some kind of scam. Nobody just offers to help a complete stranger at 2 in the morning, especially not someone asking for money. She'd heard stories about people who pretended to be kind and then showed up at your door with bad intentions. The internet was full of warnings about things like this, but then again, she hadn't asked this person for anything. She'd sent the message thinking it was her sister. This stranger could have just ignored it, or told her she had the wrong number and moved on with their night. Instead, they were offering to help. Why would a scammer do that? Sophie had finally cried herself to sleep in Olivia's arms, exhausted from hunger and frustration. Olivia laid her gently in the crib and went back to her phone. She sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, trying to decide what to do. Every responsible part of her brain screamed that this was dangerous, that she shouldn't give her address to a stranger, that this could end badly. But the desperate part of her, the part that had listened to her baby cry for hours, that part was louder. She looked around her tiny apartment at the empty cabinets and the disconnection notice from the electric company sitting on the counter. What did she really have to lose at this point? She typed back slowly, her thumb hesitating over each letter. I don't want to seem ungrateful, but how do I know this isn't something weird? I have a baby here and I need to be careful. The response came quickly this time. I completely understand your concern. You're right to be cautious. Here's what I can do. Give me the address of a nearby store. I'll have formula and some other supplies delivered there within the hour. You can pick them up whenever you feel safe doing so. No strings attached. No need to meet anyone. Olivia felt tears welling up in her eyes again. But this time they weren't tears of desperation. This person, whoever they were, understood her fear and was trying to make her feel safe. That small act of consideration meant more than they could possibly know. There was a 24-hour convenience store 3 blocks away. Olivia had walked past it 100 times. The owner was a nice older man who knew her by name. She sent the address and then added, "Thank you. I don't know why you're doing this, but thank you so much." "Everyone needs help sometimes," came the reply. "I'll send you the confirmation when it's ready for pickup." Olivia couldn't sleep after that. She sat on the couch, phone in hand, wondering who this mysterious person could be. Were they rich? Just generous? Had they been in a similar situation once? The question swirled in her mind, but no answers came. 45 minutes later, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was a screenshot of a receipt from an online delivery service. The order had been placed to the convenience store she'd mentioned. But when Olivia looked at the total, her heart nearly stopped. It wasn't just formula. The list included 6 large containers of baby formula, 3 boxes of diapers, baby wipes, jars of baby food, and even some groceries, bread, milk, eggs, peanut butter, canned soup, pasta. The total came to over $300. "This is too much," she typed frantically. "I only needed $40 for formula. I can't accept all of this." "You need more than just formula," the response said. "And I can afford it. Please don't worry about the cost. Just take care of your daughter." The store owner said you can pick it up anytime. He seemed happy to help too. Olivia put her hand over her mouth, trying not to sob and wake Sophie. This stranger had not only paid for everything, but had apparently explained the situation to the store owner, who she'd known for years. She felt overwhelmed, grateful, and completely confused all at once. "I don't even know your name," she typed. "How can I ever thank you properly?" "You don't need to know my name," the message read. "And you don't need to thank me. Just promise me something. When you're back on your feet someday, help someone else who needs it. That's all the thanks I need." The message ended with just 2 letters. TK. Olivia saved the contact in her phone as TKL Angel, because that's what this person was, an angel who appeared exactly when she needed one most. She grabbed her jacket and Sophie's carrier. She couldn't wait until morning. She needed to see if this was real, if someone had actually done something this kind for a complete stranger. When she arrived at the store, the owner greeted her with a warm smile and gestured to 3 large bags sitting behind the counter. "Your friend took care of everything," he said. Even added a little extra for you." Olivia looked in the bags and saw everything from the receipt, plus a few things that weren't listed. The store owner had thrown in some of his own items. Some fruit, a box of tea, and a chocolate bar. "Everyone needs a little sweetness," he said with a wink. Walking home with those heavy bags, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The desperate message. It was 2 in the morning when Olivia sat alone in her small apartment, listening to her baby daughter crying in the next room. Little Sophie was only 6 months old, and she was hungry. But there was nothing left to give her. The last can of formula had run out 3 hours ago, and Olivia had been trying everything to soothe the baby, but nothing worked. She checked her bank account on her phone for the 5th time that night, hoping somehow the numbers would magically change. $3.17. That was all she had until Friday, and Friday was still 4 days away. Her stomach twisted with shame and fear. What kind of mother couldn't even feed her own child? Olivia had been doing her best since Sophie's father walked out 5 months ago. He left without a word, just packed his things one afternoon while she was at work and disappeared. No explanation, no forwarding address, no child support. She'd tried to track him down, but it was like he'd vanished into thin air. His phone number didn't work anymore, and his family refused to talk to her. Since then, everything had gotten harder. Her job at the diner barely covered rent and utilities, and the tips had been terrible lately. She'd already borrowed money from her co-workers twice this month, and she couldn't bring herself to ask again. They were struggling too, working the same minimum wage jobs, living paycheck to paycheck just like her. Sophie's crying got louder, and Olivia felt tears streaming down her own face. She had to do something. She couldn't let her baby go hungry. Her sister Rachel had moved to another state last year for a better job, and they hadn't talked much since then. Things had been awkward between them after their mother passed away. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Olivia opened her phone and scrolled through her contacts, looking for Rachel's new number. She remembered her sister had changed it a few months back and sent her a text with the update. But Olivia couldn't remember if she'd saved it properly. She found a number labeled Rachel New and clicked on it. Her hands were shaking as she started typing. She hated asking for help, hated feeling like a burden. But Sophie needed to eat, and pride didn't matter when your child was hungry. She typed out a message, trying to keep it simple and not too dramatic. "Hey, I know we haven't talked in a while and things have been weird between us, but I'm in a really bad spot right now. Sophie needs formula, and I don't get paid until Friday. Could you possibly lend me $40? I promise I'll pay you back as soon as my check comes through. I'm so sorry to ask." She read it over 3 times, wondering if she should add more explanation or maybe make it shorter. Finally, she just closed her eyes and hit send. What was done. At least she'd tried. Maybe Rachel would help, maybe she wouldn't. But at least Olivia had swallowed her pride and asked. She put the phone down and went to check on Sophie, picking up her daughter and holding her close, rocking her gently even though she knew it wouldn't stop the hunger. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "Mommy's trying. I promise I'm trying." Sophie's little face was red from crying, and it broke Olivia's heart into a million pieces. Back in the living room, her phone buzzed. That was fast. Maybe Rachel was still awake too. Olivia grabbed the phone, expecting to see her sister's response, but what she saw instead made her freeze. The message had been delivered, and someone had already read it, but there was no response yet. Just those 3 little dots showing that whoever was on the other end was typing something back. Olivia's heart pounded in her chest as she waited, watching those dots appear and disappear, appear and disappear. Whoever it was seemed to be taking their time crafting a response. Maybe Rachel was upset that Olivia had only reached out when she needed money. Maybe she was going to say no, or maybe she was figuring out how to help. Finally, after what felt like forever, the response came through, but when Olivia read it, her blood ran cold. This wasn't her sister at all. The mysterious benefactor the next morning. Olivia woke up thinking the whole thing had been a dream. But when she walked into her tiny kitchen and saw the bags of groceries still sitting on the counter, she knew it was real. Sophie was sleeping peacefully in her crib, her belly full for the first time in days. Olivia had fed her at 3 in the morning. And the relief on her baby's face as she drank that formula had made everything feel worth it. She picked up her phone and looked at the contact saved as TK Angel. Part of her wanted to send another thank you message, but the person had specifically said she didn't need to thank them. Still, it felt wrong not to acknowledge what they'd done. She composed a simple message. Sophie ate and slept well. I don't have words for what you've done for us, but I want you to know you saved us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. She hit send and went about her morning routine, getting ready for her shift at the diner. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, had agreed to watch Sophie during the day. The elderly woman only charged $20 a week, which was all Olivia could afford. It wasn't ideal. But Mrs. Chen was kind and loved babies, and Olivia trusted her. When she checked her phone before leaving, there was a response from TK. I'm glad she's doing better. Take care of yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup. Those words stuck with Olivia throughout her entire shift. When was the last time someone had told her to take care of herself? When was the last time she'd even thought about her own needs? Everything had been about survival, about making sure Sophie had what she needed. Her own well-being had fallen to the bottom of the list. 3 days passed, and Olivia started to think that was the end of it. One beautiful act of kindness from a stranger that she'd remember forever. She'd already started thinking about how she could pay it forward someday, just like TK had asked. But on Thursday afternoon, while she was at work, Mrs. Chen called her. Olivia, dear, there's a delivery man here with a very large package for you. He says it needs a signature. Should I sign for it? Olivia's heart skipped. She hadn't ordered anything. What kind of package? It's a big box. Looks like furniture maybe, Mrs. Chen said. The label says it's from some baby store. I didn't order anything, Olivia said, confused. Then it hit her. Mrs. Chen, can you check if there's a name on the shipping label? There was rustling on the other end. It just says TK in the sender information. Olivia felt her chest tighten. Yes, please sign for it. I'll be home in 2 hours. The rest of her shift dragged on forever. She kept checking the time, wondering what TK could have possibly sent. When she finally got home, Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway looking excited. I didn't peek. But the box is quite large, she said with a knowing smile. Inside her apartment, Olivia found a massive box with easy open tabs. She pulled them, and the sides fell away to reveal a beautiful crib. Brand new, still wrapped in protective plastic. Her own crib was falling apart, held together with duct tape and prayer. One of the sides didn't lock properly anymore, and she'd been terrified Sophie would somehow fall out. There was an envelope taped to the top. Inside was a simple card that read, Every baby deserves a safe place to sleep. TK. Also in the envelope was a $200 gift card to the local grocery store. Olivia sat down on the floor and cried not sad tears, but the kind of tears that come when you're so overwhelmed with gratitude that your body doesn't know what else to do. How did this person know about her broken crib? Had they somehow seen it? Was TK someone she knew? She tried calling the number for the first time, wanting to hear this person's voice, to understand who they were, but it went straight to voicemail, a generic automated message with no personal greeting. She left a message anyway, her voice shaking. TK, this is Olivia. I don't know how you knew I needed a crib, or why you're doing all of this, but you've changed my life. You've given me hope when I had none left. I wish I could thank you properly. I wish I could understand why you're helping a stranger like this. Please, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. You've been there for me, and I want you to know I'm grateful. So grateful. Over the next week, more deliveries came. A warm winter coat for Sophie, since the weather was getting colder. A box of clothing in various sizes so she'd have things to grow into. Even a soft rug for the living room floor, somewhere safe for Sophie to play when she got older. Each delivery came with a small card, always signed TK, always with a simple message about why that particular item mattered. Olivia's neighbor from across the hall, a young guy named Danny, mentioned seeing expensive black cars in the parking lot during the deliveries. Whoever your friend is, they've got serious money, he said. Those weren't regular delivery vans, those were private courier services, the kind rich people use. That comment sent Olivia down a rabbit hole. She started wondering who TK really was. Were they wealthy, a business owner, a celebrity? The phone number had a local area code, so they were probably nearby. She wanted to know, needed to know, not because she wanted anything more from them, but because she wanted to understand what kind of person does something like this. Late one night after Sophie was asleep in her new safe crib, Olivia did something she felt a little guilty about. She typed the phone number into a search engine, hoping to find some clue about who TK was. What she found made her drop her phone in shock. The investigation. Olivia's hands were trembling as she picked her phone back up from where it had fallen on the couch. She read the search results again, making sure she wasn't seeing things wrong. The phone number she'd accidentally texted that desperate night belonged to a corporate directory, and the name listed under TK was Theodore Kingston, CEO of Kingston Digital Solutions, one of the biggest tech companies in the entire country. She clicked on the Images tab and her screen filled with photos of a man in expensive suits at business conferences, shaking hands with politicians, speaking at charity events. This was TK. The person who had been helping her wasn't just wealthy. He was a billionaire. She'd seen his company's logo everywhere. On apps she used, on billboards downtown. Even on the news, Olivia felt her stomach drop. She'd been texting a billionaire like he was just some regular person. She'd been casual, even a little demanding in some of her thank you messages. What must he think of her? And why on earth would someone that rich and important take time out of their day to help a struggling waitress and her baby? She spent the next hour reading everything she could find about Theodore Kingston. Most articles focused on his business success, his company's stock prices, and his various corporate deals. But then she found some older articles, ones from about 15 years ago. They told a different story. Theodore Kingston hadn't always been rich. He'd grown up in poverty, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. His father had left when he was just 2 years old, never to be heard from again. The articles mentioned how his mother had struggled, how there were times they'd lived in their car, how Theodore had worn the same pair of shoes with holes in them for 2 years straight because they couldn't afford new ones. One interview from early in his career stood out. A reporter had asked him what drove him to succeed, and his answer was simple. I never want to feel helpless again, and I never want to see someone struggling the way my mother did without being able to help. Olivia felt tears rolling down her cheeks as she read his words. Her accidental text hadn't just reached a random rich person. It had reached someone who understood exactly what she was going through, someone who had lived it, who remembered what it felt like to go without, to watch a parent sacrifice everything and still come up short. Suddenly all the gifts made sense, the formula, because he remembered being hungry, the crib, because he knew what it was like to sleep somewhere unsafe, the winter coat, because he'd probably been cold plenty of times as a child. Every single thing he'd sent wasn't random generosity. It was specific, intentional. Born from real understanding, she wanted to call him, to tell him she knew who he was now, to thank him properly, but something held her back. He'd kept his identity hidden on purpose, signing everything as just TK. If he'd wanted her to know he was Theodore Kingston, he would have told her. Maybe the anonymity was important to him. Maybe he got tired of people treating him differently because of his wealth and status. The next morning at the diner, Olivia couldn't focus on work. She mixed up orders, forgot to refill coffee cups, and nearly dropped a plate of eggs. Her coworker Rita finally pulled her aside during their break. Girl, what is going on with you today? You're somewhere else entirely. Olivia wanted to tell her everything. About the accidental text about TK, about discovering he was Theodore Kingston, but something stopped her. It felt private, sacred almost, like sharing it would somehow break the spell. Just tired, she said instead. Sophie's been fussy at night, but Rita knew her too well. This isn't tired, this is something else. You've got that look like your mind is racing 1,000,000 miles an hour, Olivia sighed. If someone did something incredibly kind for you, something that changed your whole life, but they wanted to stay anonymous, would you respect that? Or would you try to thank them face to face? Rita thought about it for a moment. Depends, I guess. Why do you think they want to stay anonymous? Maybe because they're tired of people wanting things from them, Olivia said. Maybe because they just want to help without all the attention and expectations that come with it. Then you respect it, Rita said firmly. Real kindness doesn't need recognition. If this person wanted thanks, they'd have given you a way to properly give it. The fact that they're staying hidden means the act itself is what matters to them, not the credit. Those words settled something in Olivia's chest. Rita was right. Theodore Kingston had chosen to help her as TK, just 2 initials, just a mysterious benefactor. He could have shown up at her door with cameras and press releases, could have turned her story into good publicity for his company, but he hadn't. He'd quietly helped and asked for nothing in return. That evening, Olivia sent him a text. She'd thought carefully about what to say. TK, I want you to know that your kindness has given me more than just things. It's given me hope. It's reminded me that good people exist in this world. I don't need to know anything more about you than what you've already shown me through your actions. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. She didn't mention that she knew who he was. Didn't reference his company or his wealth. Just kept it simple and honest. The way their whole strange connection had been from the start. His response came an hour later. Your text that night reminded me of someone I loved very much. Someone who struggled the way you're struggling. I couldn't help her enough back then, but I can help you now. That's all this is. One person helping another, the way we all should when we can. Olivia understood immediately. He was talking about his mother, the woman who'd worked herself to exhaustion trying to give him a better life. She must have passed away, probably before he became successful enough to really take care of her. That's why he'd responded to Olivia's desperate message. It had touched something deep and personal in him. She didn't reply right away. Just sat with that knowledge, feeling the weight of it. Sometimes life's most profound connections come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the help we need arrives exactly when we need it. Carried by someone who understands our struggle in ways we never could have imagined. The meeting 2 weeks had passed since Olivia discovered who TK really was, and life had started to feel almost normal again. She still worked at the diner, still worried about bills. But the constant panic had eased. Sophie was thriving, healthy and happy. Growing bigger every day in her safe new crib. The groceries TK had provided meant Olivia could actually eat proper meals instead of surviving on whatever was cheapest. She hadn't heard from him in a few days, and part of her wondered if maybe that was it. Maybe he'd done what he set out to do, helped someone in need. And now he was moving on with his billionaire life. She tried not to feel disappointed. He'd already done more than anyone could ever expect. Then on a Tuesday afternoon, her phone buzzed with a message from TK. I know this might seem strange, but would you be willing to meet for coffee? No pressure? And I completely understand if you'd rather keep things as they are. Just thought it might be nice to talk in person. Olivia stared at the message for a full 5 minutes. Her heart was racing. Theodore Kingston wanted to meet her. Actually meet her face to face. Part of her was terrified. What would she even say to a billionaire? What if she made a fool of herself? What if he realized she wasn't worth all the help he'd given her? But another part of her really wanted to meet him. To look him in the eye and thank him properly. To understand this person who'd appeared in her life like some kind of guardian angel. She typed back before she could overthink it. I'd like that. When and where? They arranged to meet at a small coffee shop downtown, nothing fancy. Just a quiet local place that Olivia had walked past but never been able to afford. He'd offered to meet wherever made her comfortable, and she appreciated that he wasn't suggesting some expensive restaurant where she'd feel completely out of place. The day of the meeting, Olivia changed her outfit 3 times. Everything she owned was either worn out or didn't fit right anymore after having Sophie. Finally, she settled on her nicest pair of jeans and a simple sweater. Mrs. Chen had agreed to watch Sophie for a few hours. Sensing this was important even though Olivia hadn't explained much. She arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early, her palms sweating despite the cool weather. She'd looked at so many photos of Theodore Kingston online that she was sure she'd recognize him instantly. The successful CEO in designer suits, the powerful businessman who commanded boardrooms. But when a man walked in and approached her table, she almost didn't recognize him. He was dressed in regular jeans and a casual jacket. No suit, no fancy watch, nothing that screamed billionaire. He looked younger than his photos, maybe early 40s. With kind eyes that had smile lines at the corners, he looked normal, approachable. Even a little nervous, Olivia, he said. And it wasn't a question. He knew what she looked like. Had probably looked her up the same way she'd looked him up. Theodore, she replied, then caught herself. Or do you prefer TK? He smiled and sat down across from her. My friends call me Theo. Theodore is what people call me when they want something from my company. A waitress came over and they both ordered coffee. The first few minutes were awkward, both of them seeming unsure how to start. Finally, Theo spoke. I'm glad you agreed to meet. I wasn't sure if knowing who I really am would make this weird. It is a little weird, Olivia admitted. I mean, I accidentally texted a billionaire asking for baby formula money. That's not exactly a normal situation, he laughed. And it was genuine, warm, I guess when you put it that way. Yeah, it's pretty unusual, but you know what? That text was the most real thing that's happened to me in years. No one asking for investments, no one pitching me business ideas, no one wanting something for their company, just a mother who needed help for her child. It reminded me why I wanted to be successful in the first place. I read about your mother, Olivia said quietly, about how she raised you alone. I'm sorry if that's invasive, but I wanted to understand why you helped me. Theo's expression softened, sadness flickering across his face. She passed away 6 years ago, heart attack. By then I had enough money to give her anything she wanted. Bought her a beautiful house, made sure she never had to work again, but I was always too busy. Always traveling, always in meetings. I thought I was making up for all those hard years by giving her material things. But what she really wanted was just more time with me. His voice cracked slightly on those last words, and Olivia felt her own throat tighten. I'm sure she was proud of you, she said. I'm sure she knew you loved her. I hope so, he said. But I live with a lot of regret about that. So when your text came through that night, and I saw a mother struggling the exact same way mine did, I couldn't ignore it. I had the chance to help. And this time I wasn't going to be too busy or too distracted. I was going to actually do something that mattered. They talked for 2 hours and it felt like talking to an old friend. Theo asked about Sophie, about Olivia's life, about her dreams before everything got so hard. She told him about studying accounting online, how she'd had to drop out when Sophie's father left because she couldn't afford the courses anymore and didn't have time anyway. What would you do if money and time weren't issues? Theo asked. If you could build any life for yourself and Sophie, what would it look like? Olivia thought about it. I'd finish my degree, get a real career, something stable with benefits. I'd have a safe apartment in a good neighborhood, maybe with a little yard where Sophie could play. I'd be able to save money, take her to the doctor without panicking about the cost, maybe even take a vacation someday, nothing crazy, just a stable, secure life where I'm not constantly afraid of everything falling apart. Theo nodded, listening intently to every word. Those aren't unreasonable dreams. They're basic things everyone should have access to, and you know what? I think I can help make some of that happen. Before Olivia could protest, before she could say he'd already done too much, he continued. My company has an opening in our finance department. Entry level, but it comes with full benefits. Health insurance, dental, even a childcare program for employees. The pay is decent enough to live on comfortably, and we offer tuition reimbursement for employees who want to finish their degrees. Olivia felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity, Theo corrected. Not charity, an actual position that you're qualified for. You'd have to interview with the department head, do the work, prove yourself like anyone else. But yeah, if you want it, I can get your resume to the right people. Olivia's hands were shaking. This was more than she'd ever imagined. This wasn't just help. This was a real chance at a different life. The unexpected offer. Olivia couldn't speak for a long moment. She just stared at Theo, trying to process what he'd just said. A job. A real job with benefits and childcare and the chance to finish her degree. It felt too good to be true. Like one of those dreams where everything works out perfectly and then you wake up back in your real life. I don't understand, she finally managed to say. Why would you do this? You've already helped me so much. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. Theo leaned back in his chair, choosing his words carefully. Let me ask you something. Do you think you could do the job honestly? If we took my involvement out of the equation completely, do you think you have what it takes to work in a finance department? Olivia thought about it. Before Sophie was born, before everything fell apart, she'd been good with numbers, really good. She'd always balanced her checkbook to the penny, helped friends figure out their budgets, even did taxes for a few neighbors who couldn't afford an accountant. Yes, she said, more confident than she'd felt in months. I think I could. I'd need some training. But I'm a fast learner and I work hard. That's all I needed to hear, Theo said. Look, I'm not doing this just to be nice. My company needs good people. People who are dedicated and willing to work. And honestly, I've found that people who've struggled, who've had to fight for everything they have, those are often the most loyal and hardworking employees. You've been juggling a baby, a job, bills, everything, all on your own. If you can manage all that, you can handle an entry-level finance position. He pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. I'm sending your contact information to Helen. She runs our HR department. She's going to reach out to you tomorrow to set up an interview. Just be yourself. Be honest about your situation and your education. She knows you're someone I'm personally recommending. But the final decision on hiring is hers. I don't interfere with my department head's choices. Olivia felt tears threatening to spill over. Theo, I don't know what to say. This is life-changing. This is everything I've been hoping for. Don't thank me yet, he said with a slight smile. You still have to get through the interview, and if you get the job, you'll have to actually do the work. It won't be easy, especially while raising Sophie on your own. But the company has resources to help. The childcare center is on site, it's free for employees, and the hours are flexible if you need to take Sophie to doctor appointments or if she's sick. They talked more about the specifics. The job would be basic accounting work at first. Data entry, processing invoices, helping prepare reports. But there was room to grow. People who showed initiative and learned quickly could move up, and the tuition reimbursement program would cover up to $10,000 a year in education costs, more than enough for Olivia to finish her accounting degree. There's something else, Theo said, his tone becoming more serious. This whole thing, you and me meeting, my helping you, it's made me think a lot about my mother and all the other people out there struggling the way she did. The way you are, I have all this money, all this success, and most of it just sits there earning more money. It feels wrong somehow, pointless, Olivia listened, sensing he was working through something important. I've been thinking about starting a foundation, he continued. Something to help single parents get back on their feet. Job training, childcare assistance, emergency funds for people who need formula or rent money or whatever crisis comes up. Real help, not just handouts. Programs that give people the tools to build stable lives. He looked directly at Olivia. And I want you to be part of it, not right away. You need to get settled in your job first. Get stable, but eventually, maybe in a year or so, I'd like you to help run it. You understand what it's like from the inside. You know what single parents actually need because you've lived it. Your perspective would be invaluable. Olivia felt overwhelmed. Just an hour ago, she'd been a struggling waitress barely surviving. Now she was being offered not just a job, but a chance to help create something that could change lives. I don't have any experience running a foundation, she said weakly. Neither do I, Theo admitted. I know how to run a tech company. That's completely different. We'd figure it out together. Hire people who know what they're doing, learn as we go, but the heart of it, the understanding of what people actually need, that would come from people like you who've been there. The coffee shop was starting to fill up with the afternoon crowd, people coming in for their caffeine fixes, chatting with friends, living their normal lives. Olivia felt like she was in a bubble, separate from all of them, having a conversation that was reshaping her entire future. Can I ask you something personal, she said, and Theo nodded. Do you have a family, kids of your own? A shadow passed over his face. No, I was married once, about 10 years ago. But the marriage only lasted 2 years. She said I was married to my work and she wasn't wrong. I put the company above everything else. After the divorce, I threw myself even more into work. It's been pretty lonely if I'm honest. I have business associates, people I take meetings with, but not many real friends. Not many people who see me as just Theo instead of Theodore Kingston. CEO. Olivia understood then why her accidental text had meant so much to him. She'd needed help, yes, but maybe he'd needed this too. Needed to feel like he was making a real difference in someone's life. Needed a genuine human connection that wasn't about business deals or networking. Sophie and I could use a friend, Olivia said softly. Not TK, the mysterious benefactor, and not Theodore Kingston, the billionaire, just Theo. The guy who showed up when we needed him most. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. I'd like that a lot. They exchanged real phone numbers. Not just the corporate line he'd been using, and made plans to meet again after Olivia's interview. As she walked home, her mind was racing with possibilities. A real job, benefits, childcare, education, and maybe even a chance to help others the way she'd been helped. She picked up Sophie from Mrs. Chen's apartment, hugging her daughter tight. Things are going to get better, baby girl, she whispered. We're going to be okay. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Olivia actually believed it. The transformation, 6 months had passed since that coffee shop meeting, and Olivia's life looked completely different. She still had to pinch herself sometimes to make sure it was all real. The interview with Helen had gone better than expected. The HR director was a straightforward woman in her 50s who'd appreciated Olivia's honesty about her situation. She'd hired her on the spot, saying the company needed people who understood the value of stability. Now Olivia sat at her own desk in the finance department of Kingston Digital Solutions. It wasn't a fancy office or anything, just a cubicle with a computer and a phone, but it was hers. She decorated it with a photo of Sophie and a small plant that somehow she'd managed to keep alive. Her coworkers were friendly, treating her like anyone else. Most of them had no idea she even knew the CEO personally, and that's exactly how she wanted it. The work was challenging at first. There was so much to learn. New software programs, company procedures, accounting protocols she'd never encountered in her online classes. But Olivia absorbed it all like a sponge. She stayed late some nights, studying manuals and practicing spreadsheets, determined to prove she deserved this opportunity. Her supervisor, a patient man named Richard who'd been with the company for 15 years, had taken her under his wing. "You've got good instincts," he'd told her last week. "Most people take months to catch on to our system. You picked it up in weeks. Keep this up and you'll move up faster than you think." The child care center had been a godsend. Sophie spent her days in a bright, clean facility with trained caregivers and other babies to play with. Olivia could visit during her lunch breaks, which she did almost every day, feeding Sophie and playing with her before heading back to work. The guilt she'd carried about leaving her daughter had eased when she saw how happy and stimulated Sophie was. She'd also enrolled in online classes again, 2 nights a week after Sophie went to bed. The company's tuition reimbursement covered everything, and she was finally working toward finishing her accounting degree. It was exhausting, juggling work and school and motherhood, but it was good exhausting. The kind that came from building something real instead of just surviving. They'd moved out of the tiny apartment into a better place across town. Nothing fancy, but it was in a safer neighborhood with a small playground nearby. 2 bedrooms, so Sophie could have her own room. An actual kitchen with appliances that worked. A bathroom where the shower had good water pressure. Little things that most people took for granted felt like luxuries to Olivia. But the biggest change wasn't the job or the apartment or even the financial stability. It was how Olivia felt about herself. She stood taller now, spoke with more confidence. She wasn't that desperate, terrified woman who'd sent a begging text to a wrong number anymore. She was someone with purpose, with prospects, with a future. Theo had become a real friend over these months. Not her boss, even though technically he was. And not her benefactor, even though he'd made all of this possible. Just a friend they met for coffee every few weeks. Sometimes talking about work, sometimes about life. He'd been there for Sophie's first birthday party, showing up with a modest gift and a genuine smile, fitting right in with Mrs. Chen and Rita, and the handful of other people who'd become Olivia's support system. One evening about 3 weeks ago, Theo had called her into his office. Olivia's heart had jumped, worried something was wrong. But when she arrived, he'd gestured for her to sit and pulled out a folder. "Remember when I mentioned the foundation?" he'd said. "The one to help single parents?" "Of course," Olivia had replied. "Are you moving forward with it?" "We are," Theo had said, spreading papers across his desk. "I've been working with lawyers and advisors for months now. We've got the legal structure set up, initial funding allocated, and we're ready to start building the actual programs. But I need someone to help shape what those programs look like, someone who understands what single parents actually need." He'd looked at her meaningfully. "I know you're still settling into your position here and I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'd like you to join the Foundation's advisory board. It would be volunteer at first, just a few hours a month giving input on program design, maybe sharing your story to help us understand what gaps exist in current support systems." Olivia had felt a surge of emotion. "You really want my input?" "I don't just want it, I need it," Theo had said firmly. "I can write checks all day long, but money without understanding doesn't create real change. You know what it's like to choose between feeding your baby and paying rent. You know what it feels like to ask for help and feel ashamed. That knowledge is more valuable than anything I learned in business school." She'd agreed immediately. And for the past few weeks, she'd been attending meetings with people who ran nonprofits, social workers, policy experts, all of them interested in her perspective, actually listening when she talked about what had helped her and what hadn't. It was empowering in a way she'd never experienced. The foundation had a name now, Second Start Initiative. focused on giving single parents a genuine second chance through job training, emergency assistance, and childcare support. They were planning to launch in 3 months with programs in 5 cities, helping 50 families initially, with plans to expand as they learned what worked. Just yesterday, Theo had asked her to speak at the launch event, to tell her story in front of donors and press and community leaders. The thought terrified her, but she'd said yes anyway. If her experience could help even one person, the way Theo's help had saved her, it would be worth the nerves Rita had been stunned when Olivia told her everything over lunch last week. "Let me get this straight," her old coworker had said. "You accidentally texted a billionaire. He helped you completely turn your life around, gave you a job, and now you're helping him start a charity. That's insane. That's like a movie or something." "I know," Olivia had laughed. "Sometimes I still can't believe it's real." "You deserve it, though," Rita had said seriously. "You've always worked hard, always been a good person. Nice things should happen to good people." Now, sitting at her desk as the workday wound down, Olivia looked at the photo of Sophie and smiled. Her daughter would grow up different than she had. Sophie would have stability, opportunity, a mother who wasn't drowning in stress and fear, and maybe, through the foundation, other children would have better chances too. The ripple effect. One year after that desperate text message, Olivia stood backstage at the grand ballroom of a downtown hotel, her hands shaking as she clutched the note cards for her speech. Through the curtain, she could see hundreds of people filling the seats. Donors, business leaders, local politicians, community organizers, all there for the official launch of the Second Start initiative. Sophie was in the front row with Mrs. Chen, who'd insisted on coming to support Olivia. Her daughter was almost 2 now, wearing a little pink dress and completely oblivious to the significance of the evening, playing with a stuffed animal and babbling happily. Just seeing her there calmed Olivia's nerves a bit. "You're going to do great," Theo said, appearing beside her. He looked different tonight in his formal suit, every bit the successful CEO, but his eyes were the same, kind and encouraging. "Just speak from the heart. Tell them what you told me, what it was really like." "What if I mess up?" Olivia whispered. "What if I freeze or say something stupid? Then you'll be human," Theo said simply. "That's what people need to see, not perfection, but real experience. You've got this, Olivia. I wouldn't have asked you to speak if I didn't believe that." The event coordinator gave them a 5-minute warning. Olivia took a deep breath, smoothing down her dress. It was new, the first time she'd bought something for herself in over a year that wasn't absolutely necessary. A simple navy blue dress that made her feel professional and put together. The lights dimmed and Theo walked out first. The applause was polite but reserved. These were people used to charity events and fundraisers. They'd heard dozens of pitches for worthy causes. Theo's opening remarks were brief, explaining the mission of Second Start initiative and why it mattered. Then he did something that surprised everyone. "A year ago, I received a text message that changed my life," he said, his voice carrying through the sound system. "It was sent by mistake, by a single mother who was desperate and out of options. She thought she was texting her sister, but she got me instead. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could ignore it, delete it, block the number, and move on with my night. Or I could respond." The room had gone completely silent, everyone leaning forward. Olivia could feel her heart pounding. "I chose to respond," Theo continued. "And that decision led me here, to this moment, to this foundation. But more importantly, it connected me with someone whose story needs to be heard. Someone who represents millions of parents out there struggling right now, working hard, doing everything right, and still barely keeping their heads above water. I'd like you to meet Olivia Bennett, who's going to share her experience with all of you." The applause started as Olivia walked out, and it grew louder as she approached the podium. Her legs felt like jelly, but she made it. She looked out at the sea of faces, found Sophie in the front row, and began to speak. "A year ago, I was sitting in my apartment at 2 a.m, listening to my baby daughter cry from hunger," she started, her voice shaky but growing stronger. "I had $3 in my bank account and no formula left. I was terrified, ashamed, and desperate. I felt like I'd failed as a mother, like I'd failed at life." She told them everything. The accidental text, the mysterious help from TK, the groceries and the crib and all the small acts of kindness that had kept her afloat. She talked about what it felt like to be drowning, to work full-time and still not have enough, to love your child more than anything and not be able to provide basic necessities. People told me I should have made better choices, Olivia said, her voice catching. But I did make good choices. I stayed in school, I worked hard, I was responsible. But when Sophie's father left and I was suddenly alone, all those good choices weren't enough. The system isn't built for single parents. Childcare costs more than rent. Jobs that pay living wages require degrees that cost tens of thousands of dollars. It's not about making bad choices. It's about a system that makes it nearly impossible to climb out once you fall in. The room was completely silent now. Some people were wiping their eyes, Olivia continued, explaining how Theo's help had been different, how it wasn't just money but opportunity, real sustainable support that allowed her to build a life instead of just surviving day to day. The Second Start initiative isn't about handouts, she said firmly. It's about giving people the tools they need to succeed. Job training, childcare, emergency assistance when crisis hits, all the things I needed and was lucky enough to receive. This foundation will help families build stable futures. It will give children like my Sophie a fighting chance at a better life. She paused, looking directly at Theo. 1 year ago, a stranger responded to my desperate text with kindness. Today we're launching something that will extend that kindness to thousands of families. This is what's possible when we choose to see each other's humanity, when we choose to help instead of judge, when we choose compassion over indifference. The applause when she finished was thunderous. People stood, some openly crying. Olivia walked off stage on shaky legs, and Theo met her with a hug. "You were perfect," he said. Over the next few hours, dozens of people approached Olivia, donors pledging money, community leaders offering partnerships, other single parents thanking her for speaking their truth. One woman, probably in her 60s, grabbed Olivia's hand and said, 40 years ago, I was you. Nobody helped me. I'm so glad things are changing." By the end of the night, the foundation had raised twice its initial funding goal. Programs were launching in 10 cities instead of 5, helping 100 families instead of 50, and the applications were already pouring in. Parents all over the country who needed help, who deserved a second start. 3 months later, Olivia sat in her new office at the Second Start Initiative headquarters. She'd transitioned from Kingston Digital Solutions to working full-time for the foundation. Her title was Director of Family Services, and her job was to make sure the programs actually served the people they were designed to help. Sophie toddled around the office, chattering in her baby language. The foundation had its own child care center now. Sophie spent most of her day there, but Olivia brought her to the office during quiet moments. On her desk was a framed photo from the launch event, her and Theo and Sophie, all smiling. Beside it was a printout of that first desperate text she'd sent. Theo had suggested framing it as a reminder of where they'd started. Her phone buzzed with a message from a program participant, a single dad who'd just gotten his first paycheck from the job the foundation had helped him get. "Thank you for believing in me," it read. "My kids and I are going to make it." Olivia smiled and typed back, "You did the work, we just opened the door, keep going. You've got this." She thought about how one accidental text had created ripples that just kept spreading, how her moment of desperation had turned into hope for so many others, how sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead to the most beautiful transformations. Sophie tugged on her leg, wanting attention. Olivia picked her up and spun her around, listening to her daughter's delighted giggles. "We made it, baby girl," she whispered. "And now we're going to help other people make it too." Outside her office window, the city stretched out under a clear blue sky, full of people struggling and surviving and hoping for better days. And now, thanks to one wrong number and the kindness that followed, a few more of them would get the second start they deserved.